set in. We're killing your soldiers below. Dead men wherever they go will remember the Alamo. In late February, early March of 1836, a group of Texians gathered at an old mission in San Antonio de Bejar called the Alamo to ward off the threats of Mexican dictator Santa Anna. In this episode, we're going to take a look at that battle.
He heard of Houston and Austin and so
to the Texas plains he just had to go.
their freedom was fighting another foe.
And they
needed him at the Alamo. Davy, Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier.
To tell the story of the Alamo today, we're going to be using a comic book adaptation of the 1955 Walt Disney picture Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, from Gold Key Comics. I'd like to follow the path to the Alamo through the eyes of David Crockett. So, where I can, I'm going to be inserting some film footage from this movie and giving you some real facts. So, enjoy. First, a little background. Davy Crockett, or David Crockett, he always preferred David to Davy, was born August 17, 1786, in what is now Greene County, Tennessee. In 1813, he joined the Volunteers and fought in the Creek War alongside John Coffey and Andrew Jackson. His popularity led to him being elected to the state legislature and eventually to the United States Congress. Crockett may have been popular with the public, but he certainly wasn't popular in Washington. His individuality and refusal to compromise made him a hated man among his fellow politicians. He also hated Andrew Jackson, whom he called King Andrew I, or the government, and he despised Martin Van Buren, whom he called the Little Flying Dutchman. Eventually, they all got sick of it, and Crockett was voted out of Congress, and his successor, Adam Huntsman, a man with a peg leg, took his place. Crockett later said to voters, "Since you have chosen to elect a man with a timber toe to succeed me, you may all go to hell. I'm going to Texas." Our story opens as Davy has just been voted out of Congress. He's on a steamboat bound for St. Louis with his friend Georgie Russell. They meet a gambler named Thimblerig. Later, Georgie finds Davy outside on the boat deck reading the newspaper. "Read this. You're not thinking of going to Texas, are you? We've got the whole country to choose from. Oregon, the Rocky Mountains, the Santa Fe country stretched clear to the Californias. What's in Texas? War. A few settlers standing up to a general and a whole army. Santa Anna's burning their homes, taking their stock, trampling their crops. And those settlers are fighting every inch of the way because they know they're right. Well, I reckon we'll be heading down toward Texas. I'm going to turn in now. I'll be following directly, Georgie." The character Thimblerig was an actual man that Crockett met on his way to the Alamo. Thimblerig was a gambler, or a better term would be con man. His game was the thimble game. He would take 3 thimbles and a bean. He would place the bean under one thimble, mix it up, and you had to pick which thimble had the bean under it. The problem was that Thimblerig was a notorious cheater. The character of Georgie Russell, as portrayed in this comic and in the movie, was sort of a composite character. They gave him a much bigger part in the movie and of course, this comic book than the real Georgie Russell. The real Georgie Russell fought with Crockett during the Creek Indian War. Crockett was asked to scout Creek territory and was told that he could have his pick of any man to go with him. He picked 18-year-old Georgie Russell, and the U.S. Army was a little upset with Crockett because of Georgie Russell's age. And Crockett writes later in his autobiography, I must confess I was a little nettled at this, for I'd known George Russell, and I'd known there was no mistake in him. I didn't think that courage ought to be measured by the beard, for I fear a goat would have the preference over a man. I told the Major he was on the wrong scent, that Russell could go as far as he could, and I must have him along. The U.S. Army allowed Crockett to have his way. So Davy, Georgie, and the gambler Thimblerig start off for Texas, always keeping an eye out for Comanche Indians. This country's sure worth fighting for. When do we stop? I swear my horse has razors for vertebrae. This is as good a place to camp as any, I guess. Suits me fine. What's that awful noise? Most Americans who came to Texas in the 1830s did so to escape debts and some even jail time. Crockett, more than likely, came to Texas to restart his political life. He had just been voted out of Congress, and he also wanted to start a new life with his family, who he had been away from for some time. When he got to Texas, he was forced to take an oath of allegiance to the new republic. And as he read the oath, he asked to change one word. The original oath read, "I do solemnly swear that I will bear true allegiance to the provisional government of Texas and any government that hereafter may be declared." Crockett asked the judge to change the word to Republican government out of fear that a dictatorship might come about. Davy, Georgie, and Thimblerig finally make it to San Antonio. Look, there's San Antone. We'll never make the town. Turn off the trail and head for that old fortress. It's closer. As they enter the mission, the men are astounded to find Davy Crockett in front of them. They're greeted by Colonel Travis. "Colonel Crockett, this is an honor, sir. Just plain Crockett, if you don't mind, Colonel. I'm only a high private round soldiers like you." The 1824 Constitution promised many freedoms to the Anglo settlers, including land. When Santa Anna came to power, he did so as a Federalist, but as soon as he had gained his power, he switched sides and became a centralist, thus becoming a virtual dictator for life, and as he called himself, the Napoleon of the West. His hatred of the rebels became pretty well known. In 1835, May of that year, he attacked the town of Zacatecas and unleashed troops onto the city for 2 days for rape and pillage that cost the lives of more than 2,000 defenseless inhabitants. Nice guy. Come with me, Colonel. There's somebody else who will be mighty glad to know Davy Crockett is here. Jim, shake hands with Davy Crockett. This is our Commandant, Colonel Jim Bowie. Crockett? My fever must be kicking up again. I never figured our paths would ever cross, Colonel Crockett. Neither did I, Colonel Bowie, but I'm mighty pleased they have. This must be the famous Bowie knife, second one I've seen. A white Cherokee had the other one, way back in western Tennessee. This is a demand from Santa Anna for unconditional surrender. He moved on San Antone without our warning last week, Crockett. We barely had enough time to get out of town and hole up here. He's had us under siege ever since. Now he wants us to give up or he'll put us to the sword if we're captured. He has thousands of men out there. It's not an easy decision to make when you have 200 others depending on your judgment. The Alamo's one cannon roars and Santa Anna's guns answer with a fierce blast. That ought to settle the question of surrender. Santa Anna don't seem to care much for the news. Later that day, Colonel Bowie sends for Davy. I think you should know how desperate we are, Crockett. Our powder's running out, our food and water's almost gone. If we could get reinforcements, we might hold out. Our only hope is the garrison at Goliad. We've sent 2 runners, neither has reached there or come back here. Only we 3 know how bad things are, Crockett. I don't want to tell the men till we have to. Georgie Russell finds out from Davy what's going on, so he decides he's going to be the one to go out and get reinforcements. New Hope, Crockett. I found a volunteer to go through the enemy lines to Goliad. If they catch him, they'll kill him on sight. He says he'll get through. It's Georgie Russell. Georgie, wait, don't go. Famed night fighter Jim Bowie took sick very early in the battle. Some say he had typhoid, others say that he was suffering from tuberculosis. Either way, he spent most of the battle bedridden. With sad, sober honesty, Colonel Bowie tells the men that the Alamo is doomed to fall under the siege of Santa Anna's army. Colonel Travis draws a line in the sand.
Now, I can't force you beyond patriotism and your own conscience. While it's still dark, there's time to slip off to safety. I won't blame any man who doesn't stay. Those who stay, cross over the line.
Every man crossed over the line, all except for one, a Frenchman named Moses Rose. He decided that he wanted to live a little bit longer. He left the mission and promptly fell into a patch of cacti. He died years later from his wounds. On the night of the 12th day of the siege, the enemy guns are suddenly silent. The silence is worse than the shells. What do you think they'll try next, Davy? If they can't knock our walls down, I reckon they'll have to try climbing them. If they do, we'll be waiting for them. I'd like to sing a song. We've been together a long time, Georgie. We sure have. A lot of summers and winters, too. A lot of trails, Davy.
Farewell to the mountain whose mazes to me were more beautiful far than Eden could be.
The 13th day. Suddenly the silence is broken by a loud, brassy chorus of distant enemy bugles. What's that? I never heard that bugle call before. It's the Degueo, the signal for no quarter, the call to kill. The enemy's coming, Davy. At dawn on March the 6th, 1836, Santa Anna's army storms the fortress of the Alamo. Its gallant defenders fight until their last breath for liberty and independence. Thimblerig forgets all fear and fights beside Busted Luck with fierce courage. Davy and Russell fight side by side until Russell falls. Davy fights on, swinging old Betsy like a mighty club. Although the Alamo did fall to Santa Anna's overwhelming forces, the story of the brave and valiant stand by the men of the Alamo spread far and wide. It became an inspiration to freedom-loving people everywhere. Remember the Alamo became the battle cry for the Texans, and violent opposition was aroused against the invader. Settlers rallied their forces and Santa Anna's army was completely defeated. Every Texian that fought that day died. The only survivors were Susanna Dickinson, the wife of one of the men defending the Alamo, her child, and William Travis's slave named Joe. William Travis was probably one of the first to die. Jim Bowie died in bed, defending himself against men who rushed into his room. He died with 2 guns in his hand. There is some controversy as to how Davy died. Susanna Dickinson reports seeing his lifeless body on the ground near the church with 2 dead Mexicans at his feet. There's also another story that he was actually captured and brought to Santa Anna as a prisoner. And because Santa Anna didn't believe in prisoners, he had him executed. The 2004 film The Alamo, starring Billy Bob Thornton as Davy Crockett, shows this possibility.
¡Excelencia! Le suplico que le perdone la vida. I want to warn you all. I'm a screamer.
When the Battle of the Alamo was fought, Texas wasn't even a state yet. So you'd really have to call the Battle of the Alamo a Texas story. However, the idea of men standing up for freedom against a tyrant is certainly everything that America's about. And so men like David Crockett, William Travis, and Jim Bowie should be revered as heroes. Thank you and good night.